Tonight on CFTK-TV, a heat warning is directed in the Northwest. The Calgary Stampede is underway today, and some members of Parliament were not present. And the NHL has its first full-time female coach.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening, I'm Damian Smith, and you're watching CFTK-TV. Gynecology patients can now stay closer to home. The Kitimat General Hospital Foundation has implemented a new system, which is called the Fluent System for Gynecology. The Hospital Foundation says the system will help keep Kitimat gynecology surgeries local, as well as increasing operating room availability for the region, which will alleviate longer wait times. They say that there are over 700 people in the region awaiting these surgeries. The system streamlines procedures for the entire team, impacting patients in a positive manner. The purchase was made possible from local businesses, individuals, and fundraisers who gave out donations, including the Rock Out for Women's Health fundraiser. It's going to be a hot weekend coming up in the Northwest. Environment and Climate Change Canada have issued heat warnings for the North Coast inland, including Terrace and Kitimat. CFTK's Jaylene Matthews has more.
Daytime high temperatures in the region near 30 degrees combined with overnight lows near 13 degrees are expected from Saturday until Tuesday night. The province has not declared an extreme heat emergency for the region. However, Northern Health is warning residents to prepare for hot temperatures and find ways to stay cool. Check on elders and those who live alone and who might be susceptible to heat due to health conditions. Of course, drink plenty of water and use sun protection. Signs of heat exhaustion include heavy sweating, severe headache, muscle cramps, extreme thirst, and dark urine. If you are experiencing these symptoms, you should seek a cooler environment, drink plenty of water, rest, use water to cool down, and monitor your symptoms. Signs of heat stroke include loss of consciousness, disorientation, confusion, severe nausea or vomiting, and very dark urine or no urine. Heat stroke is a medical emergency. In case of a medical emergency like heat stroke, call 911. However, it's important to avoid overwhelming the system. If you are struggling with heat exhaustion or related questions, another option is calling 811 to speak to a nurse. For CFTK TV News, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
Multiple search warrants executed by the Prince Rupert RCMP has led to suspected cocaine, methamphetamine, fentanyl, and a firearm being seized. Previously on June 5th, a search warrant arrested 2 individuals with suspected cocaine, a firearm, ammunition, and cash on the 1300 block of Overlook Street. And yesterday on July 4th, another search warrant found 1 individual suspected with cocaine, methamphetamine, and fentanyl. Both warrants remain ongoing as members prepare for the Public Prosecution Service of Canada. While the heat wave makes its way up here in the Northwest, the South will also be experiencing its challenges. Here's CTV's Andrew Johnson with a Vancouver update.
Opinions are split at Vancouver's Spanish Banks on the first heat wave of the summer.
I try to avoid it. It's too hot for me.
Never too hot for me.
Temperatures in some areas of BC are expected to be as much as 10 to 15 degrees warmer than usual. That peak heat is forecast to roll in this weekend, first on Vancouver Island, moving east through Metro Vancouver and then hitting the interior.
California is really dealing with the brunt of it. That's where the bullseye of this event is, and it is stretching north, so we're getting a glancing blow.
Areas in the southern interior, such as Kamloops and Osoyoos in the Okanagan, could be sweating through 40-degree conditions for a stretch of several days early next week. Health experts are warning the people most at risk, including seniors, to stay hydrated and keep an eye on how hot it's getting inside their homes.
If you don't have air conditioning, it's really a great time to use the facilities, public and private, that have air conditioning available just to get respite from that heat.
Meteorologists confirm it's not going to get as hot as it did during BC's deadly heat dome event, which in 2021 claimed more than 600 lives. The peak temperature that week, 49.6, the hottest ever recorded in Canada. The ridge bringing this blast of summer through BC is expected to move on by the middle of next week. It's heading east where it will next heat up the prairies. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Vancouver.
Much of the younger generation of Canadians have been struggling to find jobs for quite some time now, though that trend is not going away anytime soon. Sarah Plowman from CTV has more.
The new job numbers show for young people it's especially hard to find a job right now, but the ones who I met today already knew that.
Canada's labor market is cooling. Even workers with secure jobs have tasted the pain.
It was very difficult to just keep on applying to places and either not getting a response or getting a response too late.
New job numbers show the unemployment rate rose 0.2% in June to 6.4%. That's a 2-year high.
There's not that many layoffs going on. That's not what's driving these weak job numbers. It's that jobs aren't getting started.
Unemployment has been trending up for more than a year. Last month, the economy shed jobs in transportation and warehousing and gained in the food and agriculture industries. It's also been tricky for students wanting a summer job.
My friends are actually really struggling to get jobs, multiple of my friends.
A lot of my friends who are either in university or have just graduated university keep having the same conversation about how it's very difficult right now in the job market to get a job.
Businesses that were in short supply of workers 2 years ago now have too many applicants.
We don't like to turn away good people, but we'd rather that than be short.
The good news for workers is hourly wages are up more than 5% compared to last June, but both inflation and job numbers are key factors as the Bank of Canada considers whether to cut key interest rates at the end of the month.
There's still a lot of tension here as to whether we'll get to that 2% mark on inflation.
Another inflation report will come out before the central bank makes its next decision that's set for July 24th.
Coming up next, we'll take a look at other provinces' progress with the minimum wage. Saskatchewan is set to increase its minimum wage very shortly, but there is still speculation on how the small and large businesses will adapt to the pay raise. Allison Bamford from CTV has the latest.
Adjusting the minimum wage is often a game of winners and losers.
The theory would predict that if the wage goes up, employers will hire possibly fewer workers.
Saskatchewan has the lowest minimum wage in the country at $14 an hour. An increase in October will put the province level with Alberta, still at the bottom of the pack at $15. Nunavut is the highest at $19 an hour, and BC leads the provinces at $17.40. Mixed reaction in Saskatchewan, where there's hope a raise could help close the gap.
I think it's a good step that they're increasing minimum wage, but I think it needs to be higher.
But for smaller businesses, it might come at a bigger cost.
It might mean that businesses have to pass those increased costs along to their consumers, which no one wants to see at this time.
Ontario, Manitoba, and PEI are also slated for marginal increases this fall. It comes at a time when Canada's youth unemployment rate is the highest it's been in years. Some economists say cost-cutting at businesses and a lower interest in young people wanting minimum wage work could be at play.
When I've spoken with employers of smaller businesses, they often say that, well, we can't find anybody who wants to work, right, at the wages that we are paying.
Statistics Canada says more students may start to look for jobs in the summer, which could impact the unemployment rate and offer a better sense of how young workers are faring. Allison Bamford, CTV News, Regina.
Eruptions at Italy's Mount Etna and the smaller Stromboli volcano spewed hot ash and lava today. It was reported that ash emerged from Mount Etna that has reached almost 4.5 kilometers into the air. Mount Etna is one of the world's most active volcanoes and has seen intense activity in recent days, lighting up the sky near the city of Catania, while Stromboli off the northern Sicilian coast has spilled lava into the sea. Stromboli's last major eruption was back in October of 2022. Now turning on to the weather. To tonight's forecast, the north coast will have clear conditions with a low of 9 degrees. The Terrace-Kitimat area will also have clear conditions with wind south 20 kilometers per hour, gusting to 40, which should be happening this evening. There will be a low of 12 degrees. The Bulkley Valley and Lakes District will once again have clear conditions with wind west of 20 kilometers, gusting to 40, which will be late this evening, but they'll have a low of 6 degrees. Now on to this week's forecast. The North Coast will actually soak in the vitamin D this weekend and Monday going up to 20 degrees, but then the clouds and showers will trickle in after that. There will be a 40% chance of showers on Wednesday and a 30% chance on Thursday. To the Terrace-Kitimat area, prepare. A heat warning has been issued for this weekend up until Tuesday night. Sunny conditions will be consistent until Wednesday, where the clouds will start to come back a little bit. To the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, don't expect a ton of clouds and cool temperatures for the next week because it's also going to be very hot with temperatures as high as 32 on Sunday and Monday. Now let's take a look at our roadside report for the Northwest region. On Highway 16, crack sealing is underway between Suwaska Forest Service Road and Station Road. Starting on Sunday, there will be bridge maintenance between Kerr Street and Terrace for a kilometer, so expect some delays there as well as bridge washing on the Dudley bridges. On Highway 37, it has some frost heaves between Dease River Bridge and the end of Highway 37 for 165 kilometers. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come, we'll take a look at the first full-time female assistant coach in NHL history. Largely due to the PWHL, the growth of women's hockey has been very steady in 2024. That momentum has carried into other areas of the sport, including the National Hockey League, where the Seattle Kraken have hired the first full-time female coach in the league's history. Here's CTV's Paul Hollingsworth.
Take it down ice into a 3v2. Do you work to get your gap?
Jessica Campbell has made hockey history. Being named assistant coach for the Seattle Kraken comes after years of paying her dues at numerous levels.
If the team has success and that my impact is a good one, then it could potentially open up doors for others.
This marks the second time Campbell has broken through a coaching barrier in pro hockey. The 32-year-old from Saskatchewan, who was also a player on Canada's women's national team, spent the previous 2 seasons as an assistant coach in the American Hockey League. She was the first female coach to reach that level.
That's never really where my focus is. It's always on the work.
According to Montreal PWHL head coach Corey Chevry, more women could soon be behind NHL benches.
Jess is certainly blazing that trail for everyone. She's kind of setting the precedent and kind of laying out the roadmap.
The TSN hockey analyst Cheryl Pounder sees Campbell as more than just a trailblazer.
Let's go, Hits. Set the pace.
Respected by her peers in both men's and women's hockey, Pounder says Campbell has earned this promotion through hard work and a sterling reputation.
Playing at every different level and the work ethic and making sure that she was ready to seize the opportunity. I was emotional about it.
With that emotion also comes excitement for future possible opportunities. If a female can become an assistant coach in the NHL, what about being a head coach someday?
2 words, why not?
Pounder points to the recent growth and popularity of women's hockey as proof anything is possible. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
Now entering the prime weeks of summer, tourism will be picking up specifically around the national outdoor parks. The need for travel is bigger than ever, and local communities are pushing back around the world.
With summer travel soaring to record levels,
Some popular destinations are now trying to slow the surge of tourists.
Yeah, it's summer, but since when has Yosemite been this bad?
Look at America's national parks.
National parks are like the Disneyland of outdoors. They are super packed, super touristy.
More parks are having to require timed entry reservations this summer to ease congestion, like Mount Rainier, which saw a 40% increase in visitation over the past decade. As over-tourism has become a growing challenge across the country, residents in iconic destinations pushing back.
It gets busier earlier and earlier every single year.
Crowds like these have become the norm in Salem, Massachusetts.
It's really increasingly difficult to live in downtown Salem.
Now, the city of 45,000 is trying to scare some away with new $350 licensing fees for tour guides, a massive jump from the previous cost of just $10. Tour operator Beth Crowley insists the tours aren't the problem.
The tours are actually keeping people from wandering around.
It's all part of a larger travel boom. Travelers in the U.S. spent $1.3 trillion in 2023, producing an economic footprint of nearly $3 trillion.
And the impact of the pandemic on over-tourism was to accentuate it, because frankly, we want to travel now more than ever.
A boost that in some cases comes at a cost. Recently, thousands of protesters in Spain calling out mass tourism and its impact on local affordable housing. At Japan's magnificent Mount Fuji, there's a new fee and visitor cap. And even Venice, Italy, a tourist mainstay,
St. Mark's Square is super crowded,
is now charging day trippers to help thin out throngs of sightseers.
Every major country in the world is staring down the barrel of this issue. Too many tourists in the same place at the same time.
Now let's turn our attention to the stock market. The Canadian dollar is down 0.11 cents. The price of gold is up 28.3. Oil is down 72 cents. Natural gas is down 10 cents. Aluminum is down 25.5. In Toronto, the TSX is down 184.99. The Venture Index is up 5.88. In New York, the Dow Jones is up 67.87, and NASDAQ is up 164.46. A Greater Victoria man has been arrested and released from custody after police seized several guns, thousands of rounds of ammunition, and 4.5 kilograms of cocaine from a home in Langford, BC last week. Charges have not been laid out just yet in the case after police raided the house in the 800 block of Pintail Place on Bear Mountain on June 25th. In addition to the cocaine, officers recovered 20 firearms, more than 20,000 rounds of ammunition, 2 sets of ballistic armor, and $27,000 in cash, the Victoria Police Department said in a statement Thursday. The drug trafficking investigation began early last month involving officers from Victoria and the West Shore RCMP detachment. Still ahead, the Calgary Stampede is set to take stage today, and some members of Parliament are not making an appearance. Around this time of year, the Eye of Canada turns to Calgary for the Stampede, which is scheduled from July 5th to the 14th. This is usually a time for politicians to make some appearances. However, this year, it sees some changes in that regard. Judy Trin has more.
I may have done these a couple of times.
The Calgary Stampede has been a regular stop for Justin Trudeau since 2013, when he became leader of the Liberal Party. The only exceptions were during the COVID pandemic. Currently, the Liberals hold 2 seats in Alberta. One of them is in the Calgary riding of George Chahal, who called for an urgent caucus meeting after a stunning by-election loss in Toronto last week.
Perhaps this is the beginning of a bunker mentality, right? Where Justin Trudeau starts to withdraw a little bit because he doesn't want to take the public criticism. He doesn't want to take criticism from his caucus.
Unlike past years, the Stampede also won't be on the NDP leader's schedule. His provincial counterpart, Naheed Nenshi, has floated the idea of splitting from the federal party.
Lots of polling and discussion is centered around distancing the provincial party.
Things need to change.
Like the Liberals, the NDP only have 2 seats in Alberta, but they won 13 ridings in British Columbia. That's where Jagmeet Singh is launching his summer tour. The New Democrats are hoping to take advantage of the disarray in the Liberal Party.
People in those cities are looking at the Trudeau government and the fact that it has not really been capable of making the system work for people, and right now is very much mired in a lot of internal division.
Expect to see Pierre Poilievre at multiple Stampede events, including a big fundraiser. Last year's gaffe, posing with a fan wearing an anti-LGBTQ shirt, hasn't cut into Conservative support. Meanwhile, the government is scrambling to put up a united front.
I know he has the full support of Cabinet, and I know he has the full support of the vast majority of Liberal MPs.
Tomorrow, the Prime Minister will attend an Islamic cultural event in the Greater Toronto area, where he'll shore up support in a battleground riding instead of attending the Stampede.
Around the country, anti-Semitism towards the Jewish community has increased within the last year. Matt Grillo from CTV Montreal has the rest on the story.
The poster is loaded with anti-Semitic references like the use of a swastika. It also targets Jewish MP Anthony Housefather, telling the Member of Parliament for Mount Royal to leave Canada.
The main thing for me was being told to leave my country. Being told to leave the country I was born in, my parents were born in, my grandparents were born in, and generations of my family were born in and helped contribute to.
Housefather says at least a dozen of these posters popped up in the Mile End and Outremont.
And this is just publicly disgusting in the sense that anti-Semitism is directed at me personally, but also at the entire Jewish community. Everybody who agrees with me, which is the vast majority, are being told we have no place in our country by the person who wrote this poster.
But this is not the only recent incident involving a swastika. On social media, people have been calling out what happened at the Kahal Israel Cemetery in DDO. The photos show stones on top of a tombstone shaped into a swastika. Jewish advocacy group B'nai B'rith is outraged.
Until someone is prosecuted and incarcerated, until the real consequences, people feel, okay, I can get away with this, let me try that. And it just goes on and on.
It's the increasing sight of swastikas that has many in the Jewish community deeply troubled. For years, Corey Fleischer has been cleaning up hateful graffiti, and he says, sadly, he's busier than ever.
Within the last year, the increase of swastika graffiti itself is probably up 300 to 400% in this city alone. I'd say that 90 to 95% of the phone calls that we get, not only stemming here in Montreal, but once again around the world, is directed towards anti-Semitism.
B'nai B'rith and Housefathers say at a time when there are so many hateful messages, they want the city to take the issue more seriously. CTV reached out to Bashra Manai, the city's commissioner for the fight against racism. She declined our request for an interview. In a statement, a spokesperson for the Plante administration said they are against all forms of anti-Semitism and suggested we contact Montreal police. Police said the posters targeting Housefather are being looked at by its hate crimes unit.
Our dear city government, which does not clamp down on any of it. So it is on a ramp up. Nothing is being stopped.
Despite being targeted publicly and directly, Housefather says he wants those who posted this to know he and his community will not be intimidated. Matt Grillo, CTV News.
That's all our news from now. I'm Damian Smith, and you're watching CFTK-TV. Thanks for tuning in.